Welcome to a short video for MGF 1106. And so what I'm going to do is just review three problems in session 3.4 and to determine whether it's valid or invalid. I'm going to look at the way the textbook introduced the topic, and I'm also going to just show you the way that I prefer. And you can see that you'll arrive at the same answer. So I'm looking at number 4, and this is on page 123 in your textbook, number 4. And number 4 says, if we develop alternative fuels, then we will use less foreign oil. We're using less foreign oil, therefore we're developing alternative fuels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name we develop alternative fuel will be my P. We will use less foreign oil will be my Q. And so the way that this one is set up would be as follows. So if P, then Q, and Q, therefore P. And so the way that it looks like symbolically would be, here's my first one. Here's my first line in this. If we develop alternative fuels, then we will use less foreign oil. And then this here is everything above my line. So if P, then Q, and Q. And then my last one, which be the entire argument, will be if P, then Q, and Q, therefore P. And this is the way that you would write it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and build our truth table. And so let me just center this here real quick if I can. All right. And then so that's true, false, true, false. And then if that's true, that's false, that's true, and that's true, right? Those are just pretty standard. And now I'm looking at my premises. And this is these two lines over here. So the way you connect your premises is with an and. So you connect this sentence with an and symbolically it would look like what this cell D1 looks like. So if P, then Q, and Q, and then of course the conclusion is the entire argument is if this, your premises, then your conclusion, which is what we have right here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and determine the true value for this statement, or the premises, if you will. So I'm looking at this row and this row to determine that. Oops, sorry, no. Looking at this row and this row to determine that. Sorry, it's the Q. And so a true and a true is a true. A false and a false is a false. That's a true and that's a false, right? Conjunction is true only if they're both true. So then my last one is I'm going to try to figure out if by conclusion what's going on with my argument, right? So now I'm going to look at this column and then this column. So I'm looking at true, true, which is true. Then I'm looking at false, true, which is true. And then I'm looking at true, false, which is false. And then a false and a false is true. And so what I just want to show you is what does the textbook tell us to do? And what the textbook tells us to do is to look at when the premises are both true. So in reality, then I'm looking simply at this column and this column, right? These two columns, this row and this row right here. And so when I look at those two, I can see that I get a true, which is good, and then I get a false, which is bad. And so these are my premises right here. True, true, I get a true, 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 I get a false. So therefore, my argument is an invalid argument. So the way that I like to look at it is once I get a false in this column here, the argument is invalid. So you're welcome to look at it in terms of if you're looking at your premises, if they're both true, your conclusion is true. And so therefore, that would be an invalid argument. So number 4 is an invalid argument. So the next thing that I want to look at is at number 17. And then you can see number 17, and we did 17 in class, and 17 turned out to be a valid argument, I believe. So again, the textbook wants you to look at the premises only when this is true and this is true, and I believe if I can get there. And so that's a really good one, but this is a premise, that's a premise, and that's a premise. And so if I look at all of these, as you can see here, all of these, so this is my first premise, that's true. My second premise, that's true. My last premise, that's true. And then what happens at the end? And then so I get a true. And so it's an invalid argument because I get one false. And so what happens is that you can do it this way, simply looking at the premises, and then determine whether you want to do it that way or you want to do it the other way. I don't know if there's another example here that I can use. All right, I'm just going to go back to do number 17. So number 17, I've already finished the table. And so number 17 is a valid argument. And if you notice, it's valid because it have true in the entire column. But if I was doing it the way the textbook is telling us to do it, what I want to do is, okay, so when both of my premises are true, is my conclusion true? And so in this case, my first premise is if Q then not P, which in this case turned out to be true. And then of course is P, so it's P and if Q then not P. Those are the only two times where my premises are true, and then my final statement is true, which will make it a valid argument. But again, you can see that this, in fact, being a valid argument, I have all true, and this being an invalid argument, I have one false. And so the next one that I want to look at is number 18. I might have to make this a little bigger. Oh, no, okay, it works. So number 18 here, I have the following. Let me just finish this off. So I have P and not, if not Q, then P, then not P or Q. And so my premises would be my P and then my not Q, if not Q, then P. And so what I'm looking for, according to the textbook, is where both of these are true if my conclusion then is true. And here I can see that for the first instance it is true, but for the second one it's false. But then again, if you look at the truth table, you get a false, and so it's an invalid argument. And so one of the arguments, for lack of a better word, for doing it this way, the way the textbook does it, is that another statement will double the number of rows, and then also another component of a statement will actually add to the number of columns. So you're welcome to do it either way. I will post this so you guys can see it. So number 4, number 17, number 18. But in any case, just to quickly review, if it's a valid argument, you will have all T's. If it's an invalid argument, you will have a false somewhere in the last column, just like these two arguments. And then the textbook wants you to simply look at the premises. And so the premises for number 4 is this column and this column, this column and this column. Since we got a false when the premises are true, is invalid. This is only one instance where the premises are both true and then the argument is true. And then also this one, you got two instances where the premises are true, and then you get a true or false for the conclusion, so therefore it's an invalid argument. So you're welcome to do it either way, and either way should get you the correct answer. Thank you.